Hello and welcome to Earth. I trust you have left your preconceived notions, prejudices, and disbelief when you set foot on this, the most controversial planet in the solar system. Good, because now you will have to be receptive to new concepts, alternate takes on history, and even have your perception of reality challenged at its very core. But don't be afraid. Think of it as an opportunity to free your mind from the communal thought that has influenced you ever since before you were aware of what was going on in the world. Today's date is September 5th, 2020, and here are some of the things you might have missed. News taken from the back pages and underneath the shadows of the headlines. Hidden in plain sight since your last visit to Earth. The moon is rising, and sometimes it looks oh so close in the sky when you can see it when it's full like it was a couple of days ago. We've been there, after all, against all odds and limited technology 50 years ago, but it still is an incredibly enormous and costly journey. That is slowly changing, and scientists at NASA have just patented a new way for spacecraft to get to the moon that's faster and cheaper. It's all in the trajectory. The craft starts out atop a rocket blasting off into geosynchronous orbit around the planet. Once there, it enlists the help of Earth and Moon's gravity to speed up and slow down at the right moments, cutting down on the amount of propellant required. It's not for large human-carrying spacecraft like those intended for the Artemis missions. They need a more direct shot to get the crew to the moon and back as quickly as possible. But robotic craft that can take their time can afford a couple of months in space, and NASA says that this new spin on gravity assist cuts down on the travel time by more than half, from 6 months down to about 10 weeks. The trajectory also comes with numerous options to slip a spacecraft into an orbit of any angle around the moon at practically any time, and it avoids a zone of radiation around the Earth called the Van Allen belt, which can damage sensitive electronics. The first probe to use the new flight plan is the Dark Ages Polarimeter Pathfinder, or DAPPER for short. It's going to use the far side of the moon as a shield from all of Earth's radio noise, and while in this cone of silence, try to detect some of the faintest ultra-low frequency signals in the universe, dating all the way back to just after the Big Bang, before they were even stars and galaxies. If these signals, the radio emissions from neutral hydrogen, are found, dark matter may also be detected. And for researchers, that could mean a couple of Nobel Prizes for their discovery if the DAPPER mission succeeds. And planetary scientists now believe that our sun may have had a companion star at one time early in its history. The theory stems from observations of the Oort cloud, the collection of distant icy bodies lurking beyond the planet Neptune. They say that the sun evolving on its own can't account for the large number of objects in the Oort cloud, some 100 billion or more. But put another star into the equation, one that resided about 1,000 astronomical units away, about 93 billion miles, and the numbers start to make sense. Assuming the two stars were about the same size and orbited each other at 1,000 times the distance between Earth and the Sun, their collective gravity could have snagged bits of rock and ice from the interstellar medium. By the time the Sun and its twin drifted apart, their orbits likely broken by a close encounter with a third star, each would have been shrouded in an Oort cloud far thicker than what the Sun and its twin could have captured on their own. It's an interesting theory, but one that will probably never be proven, as the Sun's twin, if it ever existed, has long been forever lost in the galactic clutter that is our Milky Way galaxy. We'll have more news later, but next, it's the first week of September, and that means it's time for the first installment of our annual challenge to the official story as to what happened and why on September 11th, 2001. Joining us for the first hour tonight is Bay Area architect Richard Gage, founder of the organization Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, which has over 30,000 members, over 3,000 of them being from those professions. They say that the conclusions of the 9/11 Commission report and FEMA's World Trade Center performance study are both flawed and, in many cases, outright wrong. You'll hear him state his case for what really happened next with Truth, the Amendment Avenger, our show contributors, and you. This week on Earth.
opinions provided by the hosts and guests on the radio show Earth do not express or imply the views of this station's management or that of the ownership of this station. In fact, it's just two guys lost in space.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will? We want your soul.
It really is a time when all of us have got to start talking louder than ever. The rapid speed of, if you like, globalization for world government, world army, world central bank, world currency, world microchip population.
Don't be afraid.
No, be afraid. Be very afraid.
The important thing is to know where they want to take us.
They have to destroy the dollar, destroy the pound, destroy the old order, while they've been building the new world order, this technological enslavement system.
The FBI is taking on $1 billion project to gather fingerprints, palm patterns, even digital pictures of faces. Eventually, it could expand to include iris patterns, face shape patterns, scars, even information about how you walk and talk. It's called biometrics.
We want your soul.
You can't handle the truth.
Time to Howl at the Wolves. It's Saturday night, September 5, 2020 or 2020. What did they say to Bilderberg Group?
As you like it.
Double A Amendment Avenger. Co-host, how are you?
Great to be here. Freedom is always your first best destiny.
Hello, Adam Earth.
Hello, everyone.
Executive producer, The Sentinel.
Good evening, gentlemen. Looking forward to this show. One quick message to pass out. Andrew just called in. He's checked in. He's listening from the hospital right now. He had broken his ankle, so hopefully you'll get well soon. There, Andrew.
Long-time listener, Andrew.
Yes.
All right. Well, we give you best wishes, my brother. We have a very special guest for this first hour tonight, and before we introduce him, we usually pray before the show off air, but tonight, to start our 9/11 series, I know Double A can give us a nice live on-air prayer for all the souls
Absolutely.
that were murdered on Tuesday, September 11, 2001.
Definitely. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come together here on the radio, on the airwaves, and just get the truth out and seek and search for the truth, Lord Jesus, because you are the Spirit of truth. And of course, you haven't given us the spirit of fear. You've given us the spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so long as we have that spirit that you've given us of power, love, and a sound mind, allow us to seek the truth. Because if we're told never forget 9/11 or always remember, then it's important to continue to ask questions, especially where the facts, the narrative, the official story does not match with one with another whatsoever. And so it's important for us to know what happened and what went down. And a lot of times these facts are incredibly painful, especially to reconcile with. So we ask for a special healing and wrap your arms and comfort the people, the victims of 9/11, including those who died subsequently in wars and all these other things that have happened, but particularly the people who died in the attacks and their families. Bless them, guide them, and keep them. But also the 9,700 who died of, other related illnesses from the cancers from the smoke. All the victims. So we need a healing for the victims, for our nation, and for the world. And part of that healing is getting to the spirit of your truth. So special prayer, of course, for Andrew as he recovers in the hospital. But, of course, let the truth go out and let it minister unto all so that we can deal with this situation appropriately and never let it happen again. And we trust that you give us the victory in all of these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Richard Gage, AIA. Richard Gage is one of the bravest people that have come on the show for years. He's been on a quest. He's done the yeoman's work for a long time. He is an architect. He is the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. You can find that at the letter A, the letter E, AE, 911truth.org. Richard Gage, welcome back to Earth, my friend.
Well, thank you, Chad. It's awesome to be here with you guys again.
It's been a long road, Richard. You've been with us for man. This is probably nine years that you've come on this show, and you've been doing this work for a long time. Over 3,000 architects and engineers have joined, have said yes, and understand your work now. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. They're committed. They want to see not only an investigation into the destruction of these three towers, but freedom, because our freedoms have been seriously diminished, and they're on their way now with the new 9/11 that we're currently living under, to being completely diminished.
Well, we're dealing with a lot of that right now. I understand where you're coming from with that. Richard, let everyone know, real quick, thumbnail, and we'll get into the physicality of Lower Manhattan from all of your great work. Richard Gage was doing great, and you're still doing great, but I'm saying you're a successful architect, and everything's awesome. But then 9/11 happens, and let everyone know how you decided to start looking into it and how it became Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Yeah, in March of 2006, I was on my way back from a construction observation meeting in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was listening to a station there called KPFA, and Bonnie Faulkner had a program. She was interviewing David Ray Griffin, who's written now 14 books on this subject, and he was talking about the 156 first responders that had heard sounds of explosions and seen flashes of light before the towers even came down. And I'm just shocked. I'd never heard any alternative theory as to how these towers came down, nor that there was a third tower that came down. And this just launched me. I mean, I'm going, what world am I living on that I didn't know a 47-story skyscraper dropped in the afternoon of 9/11 into its own footprint in under 7 seconds, just like as fast as a rock falling out of the sky, just like the old hotels in Las Vegas. This is Building 7, World Trade Center Building 7. And so it's obviously a controlled demolition, right? And the evidence shows that, the scientific evidence in the debris pile and the evidence of incendiaries. It's extraordinary, Chad.
Well, it was, and so this brought you to research more and more, and that's what I'm saying. Let everyone know. You just kept going further, right?
Yeah, I couldn't stop. I started putting together a PowerPoint presentation. There were no other architects and engineers organized around getting this these truths out about these towers. So I went to the firm I worked with, the architecture firm, 15 people. I said, look, you guys got to see this, because they thought I was nuts, but they hadn't seen the actual evidence assembled. So I pulled it together, and I bought them pizza and made them come and watch this. In 45 minutes, they were all convinced, after being very skeptical before that. And we had 15 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. So since then, it's just been, I've been traveling all over the world, in 24 countries and over 100 American cities, speaking to groups from 100 to 4,000. And we're making headway still. We have all kinds of projects that we just keep on going.
You know what's interesting is back in 2006, I showed a friend of mine footage of the collapse of the towers, which I find it fascinating that the official reports that deal with the collapse of the towers, of course, that came out in, I believe, 2003 of the first two towers, but the third tower that most people have never even heard of course, larger than the tallest building here in Jacksonville, of course, the 47-story Solomon Brothers building, that explanation hadn't even occurred until, I believe, 2008. It took 7 years for NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, to even come up with an official explanation. But then what's fascinating is that none of them talk about the anatomy of the collapse itself. they only talk about the conditions that led to the onset of the collapse and completely ignore the anatomy of the collapse. And that's one of the things that really appealed to me about Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, is that you didn't stop at the onset of collapse, but you actually fleshed out and analyzed the anatomy of the collapse itself. And so that's definitely one of the things I appreciate. But what was interesting is one of the things that convinced my friend, as I showed him this footage back in 2006, was the actual what appears to be squibs, coming out of the side of the building, 30 and 40 floors before the actual collapse itself. And what was interesting is that this individual was he didn't even have a high school diploma. But when he saw that, he immediately knew, right? It didn't take any convincing. I didn't even have to explain to him. He immediately said he knew that wasn't right. And you could see in his eyes, that holy cow moment where, like, is this for real? And I said, yeah, those definitely appear to be squibs. So can you go through with us what was the actual aspects of the anatomy of the collapse itself that convinced you that this official story leading to the onset of the collapse was not correct? What stood out to you about the anatomy of the collapse?
I'm sorry.
Well, now,
one more thing. And if someone can explain what squibs are?
Yes. Oh, actually, that's yeah. So if you could, which is part of the anatomy, so definitely. Okay.
Now, are we talking about Building 7 or the Twin Towers? Because they both have a similar and yet very different set of features of controlled demolition.
Definitely. Well, if you can explain what was similar about them and what was different, and how those lead to the conclusions, however you want to do it.
Yeah, let's start with Building 7.
Okay.
So here's the 47-story skyscraper in the afternoon of 9/11, and no plane hits this building, right? It has a few fires from when the Twin Towers sent out very hot steel beams, which we'll get to, and lit some fires in the World Trade Center, Building 7, about 100 yards north of the North Tower, or from the North Tower. And this building, after witnesses hear explosions, and we have several witnesses, and all this evidence we're talking about today is on our documentary, 9/11 Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out. That's free on YouTube to watch. And these, this building then, after witnesses hear these explosions, it drops like a rock. And this is at free fall acceleration. It's clocked by physicists. And now, a building falling at free fall acceleration, it can't be crushing anything at the same time, i.e. itself. It because all of its kinetic energy, all of its potential kinetic energy is turned into kinetic energy. So that means not one of the 80 columns in this building gave any resistance to its fall. So, and it fell for a third of its 7-second fall at free fall. And so NIST finally is forced into admitting this. NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They were tasked by Congress to explain these collapses to the American people. So they finally admit that it came down by free fall, but they did not admit that what could have caused that. Where did the structure go that was supposed to be there to hold this building up? All those columns had to have been removed at once in order for this building to fall like it did in the videos. And that is exactly what the University of Alaska, a 4-year study by this university, one of the top forensic structural engineers in the country, Professor Leroy Halsey, and his team of PhD engineers spent 4 years figuring this out. They didn't have to spend 4 years, but they ended up spending 4 years. It's not so difficult. We can all figure it out. But here they proved it scientifically with their finite element analysis, completely disproving NIST's theory that this building came down by normal office fires. and a process called thermal expansion of long span beams, which pushed the girder off of its seat on this particular column 79 in the northeast corner of the building. That's their initiation of collapse theory, when floor 13 then fell on 12, 12 on 11, and so on for 9 floors, leaving this column unbraced. And so it buckles, causing an instability that travels vertically all the way up to the penthouse, because the east penthouse fell 7 seconds earlier than the entire building. And then their theory is that this instability traveled laterally across the entire length of this 100-yard long building in just 6 seconds. And then without us seeing any of that breakage of windows, except for about a dozen windows, or breaking up of granite panels, which would have happened because if the interior was collapsing in on itself, the exterior would have deformed. There would have been an incredible deformation of the exterior perimeter structural steel system. And in fact, none of that happens on the videos. And then magically the whole thing comes down, they're saying, after the interior collapsed. It's absolutely a ludicrous theory. But, architects and engineers didn't even know about the third worst structural failure in modern history. The AIA, American Institute of Architects, of which I'm one of 90,000 members, did not issue even one bulletin on this, the most incredible structural failure. See, fires never brought down a skyscraper before 9/11. It's 9/11. Then we have not 2 but 3 protected steel structures completely collapse at or darn near free fall. It's absolutely incredible.
So you're saying to me at this time, like last week we discussed just briefly when a firefighter called in, and I had mentioned that the NFPA, which is a National Fire Protection Agency's official book, the NFPA-921. The NFPA 921 is the Bible for the federal Bible for the investigation of all fires and explosions, and the fact that for whatever reason, that even though it's the federal Bible for investigating all fires and explosions, it just so happens that was not used that day. So what you're telling me as far as any official architects or AIA investigation up to the time you got involved, that didn't happen either?
No, the AIA was not involved at all. All they did was rubber stamp the American Society of Civil Engineers, who put out let's call that the FEMA report, because that bled into the FEMA report. And the FEMA report turned into the NIST report. So the AIA basically blessed that, and the ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, basically blessed the NIST report. They had $20 million of funding finally, and it is a complete cover-up. $20 million and 10,000 pages, and not one page. Well, there is just one page on the actual collapse itself of the twin towers, and even less than that for Building 7. They were tasked by Congress to explain the collapses, but they completely have their own agenda, which is hidden on footnote 13 on page 82. What does it say? Well, it says, the investigation stops at the initiation of collapse, because we all saw the collapse come down. It came down essentially at free fall because the columns below couldn't resist the entire mass up above. Well, that's just speculation. You can calculate that. It's not rocket science. But this is what for Building 7, this is exactly what the Halsey report did at the University of Alaska. It completely made NIST quite embarrassed. And so we submitted a request for correction, which you can do with federal agencies who commit fraud like this and cover up criminal activity like this, the crime of the century, in fact. So this request for correction is 100 pages, and it focuses on 8 key vulnerabilities of NIST. And we finally heard back from them, and they gave the most ludicrous surface explanations that don't even address the main topics that we had pointed out. And so we intend to appeal that. That has to be done by September 27th. And this is about Building 7.
One of the interesting things I appreciate about what you were talking about, Building 7, is I read one of your official publications, of which I own all of them, everything from Beyond Misinformation to a lot of these other reports that you have that were then published and publicized. And I appreciate that. I could get them all for free, but I then turned around and appreciated them so much, I decided to support your work. And, of course, I'm also a member of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth as a concerned citizen and professional. So there's a network for that, too. Definitely appreciate that. But what's interesting is one of the articles published by Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth show how a 7th grade, I believe it is, correct me if I'm wrong, a 7th grade physics student took NIST to school on the collapse.
Well, it was a high school physics teacher.
A physics teacher, okay.
That embarrassed NIST so badly, yeah.
Okay, that's definitely good to know. So it doesn't even take college studies that last 4 years. You could just have somebody who's just familiar with basic physics can embarrass the. Another thing about NIST, right? And I believe his name is Shimon Sunder. When somebody asked him about dust in the World Trade Center, did you find any evidence of explosives in the World Trade Center dust? And the answer was no. But then when they asked him, did you look? And then he said no. And so that's another subject we can get into that. But again, a lot of times all I see coming out of NIST is these circular arguments.
Richard, we're gonna have to get into that in a little bit, which I'm gonna come to that after this first break. All right. As far as
you bet.
So we'll get into that when we're inside of 2 minutes right now, Richard. You know, it's amazing to me. It's pancake collapse, then it's thermal expansion. It's anything other than what it is. They have to, over and over again, new theory, anything other than let's put the blinders on the horse, look straight ahead, and ignore the fact that might be as simple as controlled demolition. Well, why wouldn't we want to look that way? Because that opens up Pandora's box, right?
Yeah, it sure does.
Definitely. A quick question for the architect, directly from the architect. The audience wants to know, don't pancake collapses usually leave behind pancakes?
Great question. Are we going to address that right now?
Well, we're on our way to break, but as far as a short answer, but there probably isn't one. But common sense would say pancake collapses leave behind pancakes. You can definitely elaborate on the other side.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Richard Gage is our guest for this first hour. In hour 2, we continue with the first installment of our annual 9/11 series. We'll let you know about other guests coming on next Sabado Noche and on the 19th. EarthRadioNetwork.com is this show's website, EarthRadioNetwork.com. Richard Gage, his website, AE911truth.org. Folks, you need to go there somewhere deep inside our Black Sheep studio. It's a Saturday night. This is Earth.
Don't believe everything that you hear. Look it up for yourself. Knowledge is power, and knowing leads to the truth. More from Earth in just a moment.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Time to howl at the wolves, Earth fans. Truth here with my executive producer, The Sentinel, for Earth Plus. Sentinel, let's talk about what Earth Plus members get.
First of all, Earth Plus members can see the show from multiple cameras live or anytime they want. Every show is immediately uploaded and archived. You also get my exclusive Sentinel News.
And weekly videos, man on the street, sit-down interviews that Double A and yours truly go out and film. And the Black Sheep Vault, one monthly show handpicked by me from years ago for $1.50 a week. That's $6 a month. You get a whole lot of content. Go to www.earthradionetwork.com. Become an Earth Plus member today.
Hello, this is Ty Bollinger, author of the best-selling book, Cancer, Step Outside the Box. I want you to know some very important information. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan requested that Carnivora be sent directly to the White House at a time when only the president could obtain this world-class healer. Now, 27 years later, Carnivora capsules are used around the world to keep people healthy. Now you can protect yourself and your loved ones in this age of superbugs with 17 naturally occurring compounds that instinctively respond to abnormal cells only without harming a single normal cell. If you want to stay healthy, now's your chance to literally wake up your critical immune cells to attack harmful invaders that don't belong in your body. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY or order from carnivora.com. That's carnivora.com. That's 1-866-836-8735, 1-866-VENUS-FLY, or visit carnivora.com. Protect your immune system. It's the only one you've got.
Chuck Bergman, psychic medium, will amaze you.
My dad passed away 3 years ago in September.
So it's funny how sometimes they never know what they're going to talk about. Did you ever have to have a car crushed? Does that make sense?
That was his job. He would crush the cars.
Say what now?
He would crush cars.
So, Matt, he really crushed cars for a living?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
If you have ever wanted to communicate with a loved one who has passed on, call on North Florida's best medium, Chuck Bergman.
Did he leave behind a sister?
It's his older sister that pretty much raised him like his
Sure,
son.
that would work. Okay, because he visits with her a lot. I don't know if she's aware of that or not. And now we got to give a quick message to Mom. Who's got the February birthday?
My mom.
Okay, that's a happy birthday to her. Also, a happy Valentine's Day coming up. He still loves her. Boy, he was like circling February over and over and over.
Book your private reading by visiting chuckbergman.com or call 904-291-1196.
On hold, we'll try and get to one phone call in just a little bit. Richard, when we left off, oh, by the way, one of our guests next Saturday night, Richard, Jack Blood, told me to tell you hello.
Wow. I like Jack Blood. That guy's amazing.
He's a great guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he wanted to make sure that I told you hello, and he'll be on next Saturday night with us. Richard, when we left off, before we get to, we'll take a phone call if we can squeeze one in this segment. Before we get to a phone call or phone calls, let's go back to what we were talking about before. Double A had brought up. Well, you had brought up basically what's in the dust that NIST does not want to talk about, right?
Right, and the concept of squibs, because some of the audience members don't know.
Okay, so Richard, let's describe squibs, and then we'll get into what was found in the dust, which nanothermite. It's not organic.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, guys. Well, let's start with the official story. In the case of the Twin Towers, what they're saying is that this upper block, about 15 stories in the North Tower, above the point of jet plane impacts, drove the rest of the building down to the ground and then destroyed itself. Well, that can't even be possible because this is the lightest part of the structure, and the structure gets heavier and heavier. It's almost solid steel columns at the base. And so this is like a Volkswagen running into a Mack truck and destroying the Mack truck. It just doesn't happen. There's an equal and opposite destructive force when two bodies collide. So that's going to destroy both of those bodies until the energy is dissipated, which is probably very, very shortly after the initiation of any collapse, if there ever were to be one. So, but that's not what happened. What you don't see in any of the photos or videos, an upper part of the structure destroying itself. It is destroyed in the first 4 seconds, just like the Volkswagen would be. The question is, what's destroying it? Well, what we see in the first 4 seconds is multiple explosions before the actual collapse. We talked about 156 first responders talking about explosions before the tower ever came down. And that is documented like everywhere, including our documentary. But then after that, you see there's additional explosions which are blowing out laterally 4-ton and 8-ton structural steel sections laterally at 80 miles an hour, landing 600 feet in every direction. So these aren't the squibs yet. This is the I mean, gravity works down, right? We're told this is a gravitational kind of a pancaking collapse. Should have gone down, but all the steel, 100,000 tons of it in each of these towers, is blown out well outside the footprint of the towers. So it's not available to crush the building at all. And what else? What you say? Well, what else could be destroying the building? Well, maybe it's the concrete floors. Well, we don't find any pancakes at the bottom of a pancaking collapse like you'd expect, like we see, for instance, there's a pancaking collapse in Mexico, and you see all these pancakes at the bottom. No, they're gone. What you see is all the photos and videos show 90,000 tons of concrete in each of these buildings pulverized to a fine powder. And it's distributed in a blanket 4 inches thick all around lower Manhattan. So the concrete is not available to crush the building either. Well, that's 2/3 the weight of the building, the concrete and the steel, at least. So what's crushing the building? The file cabinets? No, we can't find any file cabinets at the bottom. We can't find heavy-duty electric transformers. They've been pulverized also. And along with the people, by the way, which 1,100 aren't even found. That's 1/3 of the people who perished. We can't find a trace of. And so this is, and by the way, there's 20,000 pieces of bodies found small enough to fit into a test tube. I mean, this is really gruesome. So we have a real problem here that the official story can't even begin to answer, just in the pulverization and the lateral distribution of all this material. And the squibs we talked about are isolated explosive ejections. They're occurring as this tower's blowing up. They're occurring 20, 40, even 60 stories down below what we're told is a gravitational collapse, but is actually very visible, is a series of explosions, hundreds of them, leading the path of destruction down below this mushroom cloud, if you will, in these towers. And so we're looking for answers to what could have caused all of this. And what we see in the World Trade Center dust found by the U.S. Geological Survey and all of their analysis of the dust samples and the analysis by R.J. Lee Group, an independent environmental consulting firm, they find billions of previously molten iron microspheres. Well, let's unpack this, because this is absolutely incredible. First of all, it's molten, meaning it exceeded 2,800 degrees, which jet fuel and office fires can't possibly do. Jet fuel only burns about 600 degrees Fahrenheit. We're talking 2,800 degrees to begin to melt steel. And yet this is not steel we're talking about. This is molten iron, elemental iron. We haven't used iron in 100 years for our skyscrapers. So where's it coming from? Well, molten iron is the byproduct of thermite, and it produces 4,000 degree temperatures. Thermite does when it goes off, and it also produces the sulfur that was found and documented in the FEMA report before NIST cleaned it up and threw out the evidence of this metallurgical examination, which finds hot sulfur corrosion attack on the steel with liquid molten iron. Again, molten iron from FEMA itself. So where does all of this molten iron come from? It can only come from thermite. It's the only possible source of these 4 tons of previously molten iron microspheres, almost naked to the human eye. And so this is direct evidence of thermite destruction, the residue of ignited thermite.
And Richard, tell them about the columns, how they're cut.
Yeah, well, in controlled demolition, they cut these steel columns at an angle because otherwise if they just cut them, they bind on each other. So they cut them at an angle and put a kicker charge to kick the top column off as soon as the column is cut. And we see in the debris pile numerous angular cuts on these columns, and in the steel piles that are in the sheds, for instance, the JFK hangar, where they took a lot of the steel, 256 pieces is all the steel that was saved. The rest of it was illegally sent to China for recycling before investigators could get their hands on it and do a proper investigation. But there have been many who have studied this steel, like Stephen Jones from
Brigham Young,
nuclear physicist, formerly from Brigham Young, yeah. And as a nuclear physicist, he's done the studies of X-ray energy dispersive spectroscopy on the slag from the steel beams that were sent to him by the sculptors in several different cases. He finds the evidence again of molten iron and the evidence in this chemical signature with manganese and sulfur and aluminum. Direct evidence of destruction by thermite. See, thermite's made of iron oxide and aluminum powders, which basically rust and aluminum powder. And when you ignite this, when you add sulfur to it, you get all kinds of interesting things. And when you add manganese to it, you get all kinds of interesting things. Manganese is from the potassium permanganate, which is added to thermite and is an oxidizer. It burns even underwater. And they had created a lake of water trying to get all these fires to come out. But the fires lasted 3 months. Well, thermite has its own source of oxygen. So it can burn even underwater. So, I mean, this is incredible, guys, because they also find this team of 8 scientists led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen find what is the evidence of unignited thermite as well in all the samples that they studied. And they get real curious because they thought they were paint chips at first. They're dual layered red-gray chips, red on one side, gray on the other. They are attracted to a magnet. So they're going, wow, this is not paint. What is this stuff? And so they do X-ray energy dispersive spectroscopy again, find the ingredients of thermite. What's that doing in all the World Trade Center dust samples that we're collecting here? And they zoom in 50,000 times, and they find the signature, the chemical signature of thermite, but at a nanoscale, 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair, are these particles of iron oxide rhomboidal-shaped crystals and aluminum platelets. This is extremely sophisticated form of thermite called super thermite, which was developed prior to 9/11 at Los Alamos Lab and other labs. So this is should not be found there. This was all documented, by the way, in a 25-page peer-reviewed paper in the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal, and it stands uncontested. The way to challenge somebody's conspiracy theory, if you will, is to put up a peer-reviewed paper of your own, challenging the peer-reviewed paper that's finding all this stuff, and that has not been done.
Richard,
so this is why you have 3,000 architects and engineers demanding a new investigation,
and continue demanding a new investigation. Because we only have you on for this first hour, I want to make this point and let you actually elaborate on it, and then I'll try and squeeze in one phone call for you, okay?
Yeah, I'd love to take some phone calls.
For everyone, if you're new to this, listen, American 11 hit North Tower at a vastly different height than United 175 hit South Tower. Vastly different angles, vastly different floors. So, as an architect, Richard, wouldn't North and South Tower, if the official story is correct, wouldn't both of those towers have to have fallen different ways instead of both falling the same way?
Great question, because you'd expect, we have completely different kind of damage to the column structure in each of these buildings. You'd expect them to, if they're going to collapse at all, you might expect them to lean to one side and fall off the building, the top part perhaps, or come to a rest. But you wouldn't expect complete symmetrical damage all the way down each side of each building, from top to bottom, shattering the entire 100,000-ton steel structure in each of these buildings. That's just a complete non sequitur. It doesn't make sense given the asymmetrical damage from the planes, the asymmetrical damage from the fires, and the asymmetrical loading. In the case of the South Tower, it begins to tip 22 degrees off of its center, and yet there's complete symmetrical damage all the way down the building. That's
food for thought for people trying to, finally, starting to research 9/11. Let's go to Jacksonville, Florida. Keith, real quick question, my brother. Thanks for holding for Richard Gage.
Hey, Richard. I have an engineering degree from Annapolis, and I think you do amazing work. I have two very short questions. First of all, I love the work that you talked about with the University of Alaska doing that. Have you considered maybe trying to host some type of a collegiate challenge for some of the other engineering schools to replicate the fall of particularly Building 7? Those colleges like to have challenges and such, and that might be one way to reach, a new generation of engineers. And if not that, maybe during some of your presentations as you go around the country, I know you pack the stadium or the auditoriums with engineers and things who are interested in it, but to make it a little bit more generic, maybe a physical model kind of showing the difference between a controlled demolition and a fall there. Have you considered any of those?
Yeah, we've in fact sent out 400 of the University of Alaska reports all around the country to engineers. We've sent out 75,000 postcards telling them about the study, and we've invited ourselves to dozens and dozens and dozens already of American Society of Civil Engineer chapters. We are doing everything we can to get the word out. I like the idea
Richard,
of a challenge.
Richard, we're hitting this break. Great question, Keith. We'll try and finish it on the other side. Richard Gage is our guest. This is, what are people listening to, AA?
This is Earth.
Hi folks, Ronnie McMullen here talking about the gain you receive from Get the Tea. A lot of food out there is not really food, but more like filler. Almost all fillers are GMO nightmares. When foreign fillers filled with toxins enter our body, well, we don't run so well. We are being bombarded with poor air quality, chemical water, and food fillers that abuse our bodies. And we wonder why they're building more hospitals. How about a clean checkup? Life Change Tea helps you fight toxins, fillers, bad air, and water. All you have to do is drink 2 8-ounce glasses of tea a day. Save money by getting healthy. Doctor visits are costly. Healthy exercise and Life Change Tea could be your answer. So order now at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Don't put it off. Call us 928-308-0408. Again, 928-308-0408. And by the way, if you're going to call us, we say good call.
Amco Transmissions, the trusted experts in transmission repair for over 50 years, are also the right choice for all car repairs.
Yes, Amco Transmissions, the name you know for fixing the most complicated part of your car, can take care of your brakes, tune-ups, belts and hoses, air conditioning, regular factory maintenance. They can fix anything.
Plus, at Amco, if you think your car may need repairs, we'll perform a free multi-point inspection and let you make the decision. If another shop says you need a repair, stop. Then come to Amco Transmissions and Total Car Care for a free second opinion.
Why pay someone when AMCO will check it for free?
Don't trust your car to just anyone. Get it done right at any of our local family-operated Jacksonville area locations, including Orange Park, St. Augustine, and St. Mary's, Georgia.
Additional diagnostic charges may apply. See Center for details.
Find the AMCO Center nearest you at amcojacksonville.com.
AA MCO.
If you need car or truck repairs but money's tight, get help at AMCO. No matter what your credit history, AMCO has finance plans to help almost everyone.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your local volunteer fire department routinely answers the call, whether it be a fire, traffic accident, or a cat stuck in a tree. But because of declines in memberships, departments have become understaffed. Your local volunteer fire department desperately needs you. Can you direct traffic, install a smoke alarm, help at a fundraiser? No matter what skills you have, you can make a difference. You don't have to fight fire to be a volunteer. Will you answer the call? For more information on how you can help, visit the Volunteer Firefighter Alliance at supportvfa.org.
Now back to Earth, the most controversial planet in the solar system. Here's Dr. Truth.
All right, real short segment here, and I want to give Richard enough time to say goodbye to him, and always appreciated him coming on every single year he gives us time. Keith in Jacksonville, if you got a second question, very, very quickly, please, and then we have to move on.
Very quickly, Richard, I agree that people I present this information to break into two camps. One that it immediately accepted, and then there's the others that oppose it very strongly. Just wondering if you had any idea about how to approach those people that oppose it, any words of thought of wisdom of how to reach them. Thank you.
Yeah, this is difficult. I think for me, it's the scientific evidence that does the job. The technical credibility of 3,000 architects and engineers demanding a new investigation, and along with our website link, can do wonders for a lot of people. But some people will never, ever let their own psychology be challenged, because this is extremely upsetting to our world view. Because we're not just talking about the destruction of 3 buildings. We're talking about treason and mass murder and an incredible cover-up. So people don't think that this could happen. People couldn't, get away with it and whatever. They don't understand how completely corrupt our system of government, and including judicial, legislative, and the executive branches are. As well as the media being completely controlled, 90% of it by just 5 corporations. And those corporations do not have your and my interest at heart. And so people, they're either going to get it or they're not, and we have to just let them go and just keep dripping on them over time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keith in Jacksonville. Richard, once again, always a pleasure. 1 hour, man, it goes by way too quick with so much information.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
but an hour already.
But it's
But we have to also let people know that there's some good news out here. A family in England is going after a new inquest for the death of their loved one. This is Matt Campbell's brother Jeff was murdered in the North Tower here, and this evidence proved that his brother was, in fact, destroyed in the controlled demolition of these towers. So our evidence is being packaged by one of the best barristers in England, and it's going to take some funding. So I want to encourage people to take a look at this incredible lawsuit at ae911truth.org and support this effort.
ae911truth.org is the site. Richard, man, continue the work, and you and I will continue to stay in touch. And next time, maybe we'll make it even sooner than next year. But next time you come on, we need to do a full 2-hour program with you, my brother.
Anytime, Dr. Truth. We'll make it happen, but today wasn't working out for us.
No, it's good. Hey, listen, say hello to your beautiful wife.
I certainly will. I certainly will. Thank you. She understands, and I'm committed. I'm doing 2 or 3 interviews every day these days as we head into September 11th. By the way, we have an incredible 3-day conference, September 11th, 12th, and 13th. With David Ray Griffin, Stephen Jones, Neil Parrott, James Corbett, John Whitehead, many others, including Matt Campbell, all about this lawsuit and the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. Check it out on our website, ae911truth.org.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, brothers.
All right.
You take care.
You as well, folks. Hour 2 commences T-minus 6 minutes, please. We'll continue with our 9/11 series and tell you about next week as well. Somewhere in Jacksonville, Florida, it's a Saturday night, Double A.
This is Earth.
The flagship station of the Jacksonville Jaguars, WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach.
You are listening to Earth. The guys are taking a break, getting ready for hour 2, and I'm sure that if you've been paying attention, you're processing what you have heard so far. Now, we don't want you to believe us just on what you have heard. Check it out for yourself and make your own decision on whether or not you are hearing the truth. What's really going on? Is this a total departure from what you know is real, or is it simply enhancing your worldview? That is a question only you can answer. We are simply opening the door to new ideas. Our thanks to Richard Gage for joining us on the program tonight. If you would like to know more about him and his organization, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, visit the website www.ae911truth.org. We'll have more 9/11 Truth in the second hour, including some interesting audio. But first, more news from the most controversial planet in the solar system. There has long been an argument between scientists going back some 1,500 years. When we are awake and alert, how conscious are we? Of course, there are things that we do that we don't have to think about for the most part, like breathing or balancing ourselves on a bike. But what about everything else? Well, Swiss psychophysicists published a paper that may have settled this, maybe once and for all. In it, they presented a model of how consciousness works and when it doesn't. There is a 2-step process going on. While our brains are continuously processing information behind the scenes in more of an unconscious manner, we're only actively conscious of that information during discrete moments. According to the lead author, Michael Herzog, quote, "Conscious processing is overestimated. You should give more weight to the dark, unconscious processing period. You just believe that you are conscious at each moment of time," end quote. The bigger question remains, what consciousness is needed for and what can be done without conscious? Even Herzog admits that they have no idea yet as to that answer. And a little science fiction becoming reality news. One of the more interesting gadgets in the 24th century Star Trek universe is what is known as the replicator. Basically, it takes energy and converts it into whatever the person wants. Tea, Earl Grey, hot, for example. Sounds far-fetched? Well, according to Einstein's equation E equals mc squared, it's not impossible, because not only can matter convert to energy, it also works in reverse, and the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland has proven it. This year, the Atlas experiment at the LHC discovered photons merging and transforming into something very interesting. W bosons, massive particles that carry the weak force, which governs nuclear decay. And here's the really cool part. This research doesn't just illustrate the central concept that energy and matter are two sides of the same coin. It also confirms that at high enough energies, forces that seem separate in our everyday lives, electromagnetism and the weak force, are united. So it's not exactly creating a cup of hot tea, but it's a step in the right direction. And there was a big oops that came out of the Defense Department last year. The U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff published the Pentagon's official doctrine on the use of nuclear weapons for all to see on their public website in July of 2019. Joint Publication 372, Nuclear Operations, an overview of nuclear strategy, force structure, planning, targeting, command and control, and operations was quickly pulled down after the error was realized, but not after at least one group, the Federation of American Scientists, was able to preserve a copy. One passage in the document was described as something that could have come out of the movie Dr. Strangelove. It reads, quote, "Using nuclear weapons could create conditions for decisive results and the restoration of strategic stability. Specifically, the use of a nuclear weapon will fundamentally change the scope of a battle and create conditions that affect how commanders will prevail in conflict." End quote. Strange-Glovian indeed. Stay tuned. More 9/11 truth is in store for you when Hour 2 of Earth starts. Next.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
The opinions provided by the hosts and guests on the radio show Earth do not express or imply the views of this station's management or that of the ownership of this station. In fact, it's just two guys lost in space.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole? You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind. Do you want to know what it is? It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave like everyone else. You were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, you have to see it for yourself. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more. Do you really? Follow me.
And the radio show Earth is that red pill. The red pill of truth.
You can't handle the truth.
I didn't think so.
But I need it.
Second hour tonight's transmission, September 5, 2020 or 2020, as you like it. Next Saturday night, I mentioned to our guest Richard Gage, and he loves Jack Blood. Next Saturday night, Jack Blood joins us along with John Kohner, long-time guest both. We haven't had Jack on in a number of years, so look forward to that. And then on the 19th, Ty Bollinger and Charlene Bollinger join us to wind out our annual 9/11 series. So I want to, last Saturday night when I was on the road, I just want to correct something real quick, and then we're going to continue. Just this is so people can look this up, because it was brought up, and it's not really a correction necessarily, but it's more detail if people want to write this down. Great listener had called in, and he was mentioning basically war games that were happening on the morning of 9/11. So if you want to look up the war games that were happening, they're called Vigilant Guardian, Vigilant Warrior, and Northern Vigilance. Okay, those 3 exercises were going on the morning of 9/11 with what's called inserts on the FAA radar and NORAD from Cheyenne Mountain and NORAD's radar. It was a simultaneous drills, and when the call went out, the multiple hijackings were happening. The call went out, is this from Cheyenne, is this real world or exercise? Not simulation, real world or exercise. But those exercises, those war games had, and we'll go into detail in this next Saturday night and on, but look up Northern Vigilance, Vigilant Guardian, and Vigilant Warrior, folks, and you can start getting an idea about some of the things we're going to be talking about. 9/11 is very vast, a lot to talk about. But AA, before the show started, here's, predictive programming has been talked about on this show many, many times over the years. And this is how, and Richard Gage mentioned controlled mainstream media, which we mention over and over again on this show. How do you set the mindset for people when something like an inside job like 9/11 is going to happen? Well, it happens over years.
It does. It does.
It happens over years. So people don't understand if they don't, if you rack your brain and go back years before, they were painting the boogeyman in your mind. A guy by the name of Osama bin Laden, who was on record a CIA asset, worked for the CIA.
Oh, you mean Mr. Tim Osman?
Tim Osman, codename Tim Osman.
All right.
All this can be looked up. So in '98, who's bin Laden working for when he did the USS Cole and did the embassy bombings in Dar es Salaam and Kenya? When? Who was he working for? Oh, he's a CIA asset. Doing the Cole bombing, right? Doing the embassy bombings in Kenya and Dar es Salaam. That's setting in your mind this guy bin Laden. And so then on the morning of Tuesday, September 11, 2001, with no investigation, the media and the Bush administration tell you that it was bin Laden and al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda.
Interestingly enough, Al-Qaeda literally translated means the base. What base? The database. What database? The database of the CIA database of Mujahideen operators in Afghanistan. So when you say Al-Qaeda, it's not that much of a stretch, because that's actually the literal translation.
It's something Truth was mentioning there about this predictive programming and all. I'll never forget, nobody will never forget 9/11, where you were, what you were thinking and all that. And I'll never forget when the first plane hit, I was thinking, okay, an idiot in some Cessna, I didn't see any of the video, so I was just putting it into my mind that it was some little plane that, hit the World Trade Center, big deal. All of a sudden, the second one hit, and I heard the numbers 767, and my first thought was, those bastards talking about the terrorists. You know, where did I get the idea that there were terrorists from? Well, from the news, because they're the ones, like Truth said, that have been drilling us with this bin Laden since 1998 and even before then.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. If you think about it, folks, you already knew. It was already in your head.
And it was so much easier to accept that when somebody said, "Hey, yeah, it was Al Qaeda, it was Osama bin Laden," and everybody just ate it up, just fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, basically. That just took it as it was, bought it sight unseen.
Well, you know what's interesting is real violence in the real world, and typically happens. It's all of a sudden. It's instant. It's not an escalation like in a Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay film, as you have these slowly, they call it progressive complications in a movie that lead you to the climax or the crisis moment in the movie. So there's this buildup so that by the time you're there and everything's so ridiculously off the charts that there is this sort of willing suspension of disbelief because they took you on this journey of escalation and buildup. But that's only in fantasy. That's only in Hollywood. That's only in again, Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer type, Michael Bay type production. And that's kind of what we saw, because what's interesting is that the first plane hits, that gets all eyes on the tower. Then we can all witness live as the second plane hit, and that kind of reminds me of what happened recently in Beirut, in Lebanon with that explosion, because the first explosion got all cameras on, and then when the second explosion went off, that's when you had that massive explosion, that the psychological impact, and of course it was much bigger than the first. So it sort of reminded me of, that's interesting. You have a first explosion that gets all eyes on this particular area, then you have the second one. Now, I found it interesting that on the morning of 9/11, I thought the same thing that you thought, Sentinel. I thought somebody said, "Hey, turn on the news. Have you heard?" And we looked, and I saw the first tower was burning. And then as we're watching it, another plane comes in, and then bam, we see the other one. And what was interesting is that it was Katie Couric, I believe, and she made like $98 million a year, back in the day on NBC. And she said, "Something must be terribly wrong with the radar," is what she said. And I'm like, and I screamed at the TV, "Lady, we're under attack!" It was a clear sunny day, with not a cloud in the sky, right? Something wrong with the radar. I was like, but then it occurred to me that's why it was a 1-2 punch. The first punch was to get all eyes looking in that direction. So the second one was so that you can then have that escalation. And of course, what came after that was the collapse, and then all. So it was just like a movie, right? Just like any type of script where you have those progressive complications as part of a story or a narrative that you're trying to tell. And of course, like you said, there's this buildup with Osama bin Laden. So in my mind, it was like already it was Osama bin Laden. I remember when I re-enlisted, and I called my mother on the phone. And by the way, I was part of the tail end of Operation Vigilant Warrior. So it is a thing. I was there. I was on board the aircraft carrier USS George Washington that responded to the whole thing and stayed in that area after the whole thing went down to sort of actually guard the area like what NORAD is supposed to do. So aircraft carriers were also a part of that, at least afterwards anyway. And I was on board for that. So Vigilant Warrior and those others are
Guardian,
right, and so those are real things.
And Northern Vigilance.
Yes. So I participated in Vigilant Warrior. So that's a thing. That's not made up.
Speaking of things, that is something that the media didn't tell everybody right away. Was all these operations were going on. They were supposed to be drills, which were the exact same thing that was happening in real life to create that kind of confusion. And there is no way that anybody would have known about it unless they had some sort of inside knowledge that, okay, September 11th is when this is going to happen, and this is when we're going to orchestrate our attacks. So damn well that those terrorists had inside help to orchestrate this thing on the exact day, the absolutely worst possible day that they could have picked, as far as the government and their ability to respond to it. That can't be coincidence. That can't be luck.
Well, what's interesting is insurance companies have mathematical algorithms for their computers for when they calculate, the probability, right, of an incident and the hazard severity and the mishap probability, and they have algorithms for that. And so just like 9/11 and just like the London bombings that happened on 7/7, right, where the actual thing went down exactly as the drill scenario happened in the exact same manner at the same time, the same day, in the same place, and everything. And the insurance company algorithms that were ran to say what is the probability of having an actual attack go down in the exact same way, manner, at date and time as the drill itself, right? The odds were so astronomical that they calculated that there are more grains of sand on the planet Earth than
the chance, yeah,
right, than the chance and the probability.
Well, you
so
know,
astronomically low.
That is the one thing I believe that really tipped my thinking in the way that we talk about on the show, because that's something that I didn't know until I got to know Dr. Truth and get associated with the radio show Earth. And when I heard about that, all those operations going on, Northern Vigilance and the one you were a part of, and
Vigilant Warrior,
and all those, I was thinking to myself, that can't be a coincidence, and that's what got me thinking in the other way. And if more people actually knew about it and actually knew that these were things that are happening on the day that the attacks were happening, I think that a lot more people will convert to that way of thinking.
I'm glad you elaborate on it, and I guess we might as well just hit this a little bit. And by the way, how long have we known each other? And you didn't tell me you were a part of Vigilant Guardian or Warrior.
You're in trouble.
Vigilant Warrior.
Yeah. But
yeah, that's actually something I thought about. I was like, I was part of that. But again, I was on the tail end of it. I didn't.
But for the listeners who are going to look this up, just
because the operation continued, by the way, after it didn't end on 9/11. Vigilant Warrior continued, and 11 days later, I was on the aircraft carrier, and we continued to.
I understand, but
yeah.
the morning,
Right.
what Sentinel's bringing up, if we want to hammer it home, I guess, these drills on the morning of 9/11 are to do what? To drill for hijacked airliners.
Yes.
On the morning of 9/11, simultaneously, while there's actual hijackings going on, they're drilling for hijacked airliners and how to respond to that. And so it's just so convenient, isn't it, that it's happening at the same time to confuse NORAD and the FAA with all these inserts, which are phantoms on their radar screens, phantom hijacked airliners, tons of them. So they can't tell which one is the real hijacked airliner and which one is the phantom. That's why they said, is this real world or exercise?
That's one of the things that blew me away. It was 22 simultaneous hijacked aircraft. Now, I didn't know that for years later, but I remembered, because I was glued to the TV and watching the chyrons and everything and listening. It was mentioned, and I believe it was CNN. It might have also been Fox News. But when they said, this was days later, that the original plan was for 22 aircraft, but all they could do was 4, right? And I just thought that was it. I was like, wow, imagine. So the number 22 stuck in my head. And then years later, I find out that the actual drill itself was for the exact amount of aircraft that the news said was part of the original official plan for 9/11. So they're saying the actual plan was for 22 aircraft. I was like, wow, that would have been just totally, completely devastating. So that 22 number stuck in my head. And then come to find out that the drill itself just so happened to have the exact amount of aircraft that CNN said was part of the original 9/11 plan. How about that?
And we just happened to not have AA.
Yeah.
What that morning? We had no aircraft, no fighters to scramble because they're out doing drills in the northern Atlantic.
We had 4 unarmed aircraft for the whole nation of the United States.
Otis Air Force Base, you had 2 F-15 Eagles.
Yeah.
Unauthorized. Wasn't supposed to scramble because we had stand down orders that morning.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Dick Cheney,
yes,
Donald Rumsfeld. Those stand down orders, folks. You can look this up too. June 1st, 2001. President Cheney, not Vice, President Cheney issued stand-down orders to NORAD. For the first time in the history of NORAD, they're given stand-down orders, right?
Well, not just stand-down orders, but remember, the vice president is not actually part of the chain of command at all.
Right.
So how is the vice president, who's not a member of the chain of command,
because he was president,
giving orders? Right. So he's the acting president, like when you say the Cheney administration.
Right.
Yeah. That was the thing.
When did Cheney lift the stand-down orders? Even though Otis, that commander was disciplined very heavily for sending those F-15 Eagles screaming across the country and they were way out of time,
right,
to even intercept Flight 93.
Right. Now, good people in the Air Force did everything in their power to get aircraft scrambled. As a matter of fact, there were 2 aircraft, fully loaded, armed aircraft, scrambled 2 minutes before the Pentagon got hit with whatever. That's a whole other story. But 2 minutes before the Pentagon got hit, there were 2 fully loaded F-16s flying out there to intercept, but they were already too late. And so again, there were good people in the in the Air Force who actually did get aircraft airborne before the final event. However, they just didn't have enough time to make it over there if they were to intercept an aircraft at all. The whole other story. But again, they did their best, but again, they were set up for failure. And so again, some amazing, incredible people in the Air Force scrambled to make some stuff happen all over the country, and they actually got 2 aircraft airborne before that. And of course, there's a whole debate as to whether or not generals even obeyed orders when, and as far as the thought process as to whether or not Flight 93 was actually shot down, because the debris field was 8 miles wide. So that's a whole other thing. So there is a theory out there that certain generals that didn't obey orders. Now we had a particular general on this show, right, who NORAD answered to.
McInerney.
Yes, and I asked him the question. I said, look, if NORAD stood down on your watch, which again it wasn't on his watch, I said, would you have promoted all of them, or would you be bashing skulls? And he just said, let me just say, I wouldn't have promoted them.
Instead, Richard Myers got promoted to Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, well, in Everhart and all them clowns. And again, a lot of amazing people in the Air Force and in NORAD and everything else. And I salute you. But again, most of them were set up for failure. When I was in the Navy, a lot of people were saying, hey, we love you, you're the troops, or what. I took it personally. I felt it was a personal failure to protect America, as did most of the the people in the military that I knew. We felt as if, how did we fail? This is our duty, right? How did we fail at this? And the answer is we were not necessarily set up for success by our leadership, and that's the tragedy of it. And so, yeah, we took it personally. Those people who were in the military when it went down.
I want to come back to something in a moment, but Adam, during the break, you wanted to bring this up when Richard was on, but as far as people waking up to 9/11.
Oh, when he said that some people come into it with open eyes, open arms, and then other people are more hesitant to believe that it was an inside job. My experience is that some people are too proud to want to admit that they were fooled. That something like that could have happened, and they believe the original story, and now they're seeing all this evidence, but their pride forces them to want to continue the original story instead of believing that it was an inside job.
Well, because it's a painful realization, and honestly, when I learned the truth of 9/11, I felt violated. I felt when you have that moment, you feel violated. I don't know how else to say it. You feel as if you personally, and that's not a comfortable feeling that anybody wants. Nobody wants to feel like they've been violated. It's terrible. And so I appreciate that you mentioned that. And I believe that goes back to a Mark Twain quote. I believe Samuel Clemens, known as Mark Twain, said, "It is easier to fool the people than it is to convince them that they've been fooled." And pride is definitely a part of that. But also just to grapple with the horror of having your worldview shattered in a way that you don't want that to happen to. So it is painful. And so for people who who've been through that process, we definitely need to be sensitive to that as far as an understanding that for people who are just waking up, it is painful for them, and we need to be there for them to help them with that, not to put them on blast for what they may or may not know.
No, are you speaking about me? Because I've always been very nice to people.
Oh, you have? No. I'm just talking.
No, I'm being facetious,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So,
remember, I'm the kinder, gentler a-hole now.
I've made that mistake as well of putting people on blast who couldn't, just deal with it emotionally because of how horrible it was, and so it's incumbent upon us to understand how we felt when we learned this knowledge and what it's going to be like for others when they learn it.
And I've said this before on the show, but for new listeners, listen, and everyone here knows this. The last thing in the world I wanted was for the official story of 9/11 to not be true. I wanted it to be true because for me, I realized if the official story wasn't true, then most likely, well, at first it was just one person, but then, you get rid of the selfishness. You realize that most likely, if the official story isn't true, then all those people murdered on Tuesday, September 11, 2001, they're probably never going to get any real justice.
Right, and then you got to ask yourself, well, why did they lie to me to begin with? Well, what's up with that? So you're absolutely correct. There is no justice if you don't have the truth.
EarthRadioNetwork.com is the show's website, folks. EarthRadioNetwork.com. We'll be back on the other side of this Come In Here break. AA, what are people listening to?
This is Earth.
Don't believe everything that you hear. Look it up for yourself. Knowledge is power, and knowing leads to the truth. More from Earth in just a moment.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Time to howl at the wolves, Earth fans. Truth here with my executive producer, The Sentinel, for Earth Plus. Sentinel, let's talk about what Earth Plus members get.
First of all, Earth Plus members can see the show from multiple cameras live or anytime they want. Every show is immediately uploaded and archived. You also get my exclusive Sentinel News.
And weekly videos, man on the street, sit-down interviews that AA and yours truly go out and film. And the Black Sheep Vault. One monthly show handpicked by me from years ago for $1.50 a week. That's $6 a month. You get a whole lot of content. Go to www.earthradionetwork.com. Become an Earth Plus member today.
Chuck Bergman, psychic medium, will amaze you.
Any reason for me to see in a Rubik's Cube?
Oh, it's possible. That would have to do with my brother.
Why would you choose that?
My brother does the Rubik's Cube, and he solved it a few times. He kind of had them around his house.
If you have ever wanted to communicate with a loved one who has passed on, call on North Florida's best medium, Chuck Bergman.
There must be a reason why your brother that passed keeps talking about a cyclone.
Oh, my God, I'm going to cry. My brother,
Yeah?
a cyclone, picked him up and threw him like 150 feet.
Are you serious?
And that's true. That was the reason for him dying so young, is
wow.
because of that cyclone.
Book your private reading by visiting chuckbergman.com or call 904-291-1196.
Hi folks, Ronnie McMullen here talking about the gain you receive from Get the Tea. A lot of food out there is not really food, but more like filler. Almost all fillers are GMO nightmares. When foreign fillers filled with toxins enter our body, well, we don't run so well. We are being bombarded with poor air quality, chemical water, and food fillers that abuse our bodies. And we wonder why they're building more hospitals. How about a clean checkup? Life Change Tea helps you fight toxins, fillers, bad air, and water. All you have to do is drink 2 8-ounce glasses of tea a day. Save money by getting healthy. Doctor visits are costly. Healthy exercise and Life Change Tea could be your answer. So order now at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Don't put it off. Call us 928-308-0408. Again, 928-308-0408. And by the way, if you're going to call us, we say good call.
free your mind with the truth. Now, back to Earth, the most controversial planet in the solar system.
Chris Cornell right there from the album Temple of the Dog. Total inside baseball here, guys. You know who the first time we were driving together, dating, she put that album on, and I had never listened to any more than 3 tracks on that, and that was her favorite song. It's pretty crazy. Jacksonville, Florida, longtime listener Andrew. Welcome to Earth, man. How are you? How's your ankle?
Yeah, well, my foot's broke, my ankle's sore. I got gout in that from the break, and my knees got gout in it. I couldn't get up. I had to be fire rescued this morning to Baptist Beaches. But what I was getting at is, from the guy who took me up to my room today to everybody who treated me as one patient. It didn't matter what color I was, and my people who treated me ran the gamut of every race you can imagine. I don't have to even call out one. You name it, I was taken care of. They may not have been having the best day. They may have been fighting with their coworker, but they didn't let it show. You know, and it's just it kind of woke me up. I haven't been in healthcare in 30 years when I was a patient, and it woke me up then. So it woke me up again, and that was just my 2 cents worth. And you know, I'm still listening, catching back up with you guys, like I told you, even though when I'm sitting in a hospital bed and I got a stress test at 9 in the morning. And I just got my last little ice cream down before midnight because I can't have anything else. But I can't wait to crack open that first Rolling Rock because my brother-in-law snuck me one in the night, and it tasted like gold, even though I don't think it's the best beer in the world. But you guys rock. I miss really getting to listen to the whole thing because I got interrupted getting my blood pressure taken and stuff, but I'll catch you on the replay, and I'll be back with some good content. I'll study up while I'm down with my foot, and I'm gonna blow your socks off, guys.
A little bit of advice for your gout: cherry juice.
Absolutely,
cherry juice does wonders for gout. So.
And turmeric's a great anti-inflammatory. I kind of have similar issues, and turmeric works wonders for me as well. There's a whole bunch of amazing natural cures as well. Yeah. So definitely you can always supplement what you're doing with some of that.
Yeah, and a little less beer too, as my doctor said. I said, yeah, I got you there. But
yep, yeah, I concur.
You almost trade one for another, I guess, but I still love the show, and you know what you're the cure for?
What's that?
The truth. Whoa! I couldn't do it loud because I'm gonna wake up people, but I love you guys. See you. Bye.
Thank you, Andrew. I think I heard the Oxycontin talking.
Yeah.
But
he's on the good stuff tonight.
That's right. That's right.
Get well, Andrew.
Yes, good. Get better. All that jazz. Stop breaking stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So, yes.
No more skydiving without a parachute.
Yeah, that's ill-advised.
We're going anywhere and everywhere in this next 2 weeks, folks, with our guest on 9/11, and of course we'll keep you abreast about if we have to talk about other stuff. We'll have to do that and everything. But so Double A, when we left off, actually let me ask you this question.
Okay.
As far as you were talking about, obviously people know you were in the military, but your process, Clarice, of waking up. You were still in the military.
Yes.
Were you very tight-lipped?
No, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, you need to, one person at a time. I didn't run around in uniform screaming like 9/11 was an inside job or anything like that. I just did my own investigation. But again, my process, when the thing first went down, I bought the official story, hook, line, and sinker. I was like, oh yes, this Osama bin Laden, he's evil, he wants to kill us or whatever. So I was down, and so my process for waking up was gradual. Watched a couple of documentary films and that seemed to have credibility, and what actually convinced me about 9/11 was actually studying the Oklahoma City bombing, because once I saw the process for how that worked, and how that was a total inside job, Oklahoma City. I then began to apply that same process towards the pattern that I saw in 9/11, and that was quite disturbing. And I eventually got to the point where I could not deny the evidence, and then people were coming out. And then once I understand the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, scenario, it was again it was a painful process of just acknowledging and awakening it, and just looking at things from that particular outside that left wing right wing paradigm, and then just looking at the Hegelian process. And then in doing so, what I noticed was, and G.R. Griffin said it best, he said the action is in the reaction. Like when the terrorist event itself makes no sense, right? The mass shooting or whatever it is, right? The incident itself doesn't make any sense, but then when you look at the reaction, oh, we just happen to have 1,061 sections of or 1,016 sections of legislation,
Patriot Act,
ready to rock and roll that next day. It's like, wow, this Congress is so great that as aircraft were hitting buildings and were exploding and everything, they were sitting down hammering out 1,061 sections of legislation and had it ready the next day. Aren't they so amazing? No, that's not how it went down at all. So yeah, so for Patriot Act to come out of thin air, 1,016 sections of legislation, and it's very, very interesting. So when I start looking at patterns and then seeing the same pattern over and over again, and again, when you look at the action is in the reaction, and then you see how they react, and it's like, well, that's how they reacted last time. This is what they got. This is who benefited, right? Qui bono is the Roman, we all heard quid pro quo, something for something. Oh, the whole Ukrainian nonsense. Well, how about qui bono? There's another Roman phrase, Latin phrase for you. It means who benefits. So if you want to know who committed the crime, who committed the murder, right? Well, who benefited from the murder? That's usually suspect number one, right? Of course, we always watch forensic files and stuff like that. It's like, and people saying, oh, the husband did it or the wife did it because why? The insurance money or whatever it is. So the first suspect, and it's usually not always that's who did it, but the first people they look at, when any police or detectives are investigating, who committed the crime, the first people they look at is who benefited from the crime. That's the first people you should look at. And so when you ask yourself who benefited from this, those are the first people you should look at. But there was people nobody was looking at officially.
Who financed this is of little practical significance, right?
Yes, page 172 of the official report. That pretty much says God is a liar, because the Bible says money answereth all things, except for 9/11. Money doesn't answer 9/11 because I guess God is a liar, according to the official report.
It just so happens that we have a clip kind of speaking to that. Some guy named Donald Rumsfeld, who was Secretary of Defense, right? For some reason, Donald Rumsfeld on Monday, September 10, 2001, the day before 9/11, had a very interesting press conference.
A very interesting title in the newspaper, too. I'll tell you about that on the other side. The newspaper published something different about what he said the day of 9/11, of course, which was the previous day's news.
Well, Sentinel, if we have it, if we don't.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
Okay, we are ready.
Lights,
The day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere $300 million.
We know it's gone.
but we don't know what they spend it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, you know. My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So
he was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
they got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayers.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went.
Okay, all I needed was Donald Rumsfeld saying we're missing $2.3 trillion. That's Monday, September 10, 2001.
Right.
We're missing the Pentagon's missing $2.3 trillion. Right?
Yes, with a
well, as you research 9/11, dear listeners, if you're going to do so, right? Remember, whoever financed 9/11 is of little practical significance, according to the so-called people who investigated 9/11, right?
Right.
The Warren Commission 2,
yes,
which was the 9/11 Commission.
Yes.
Totally vapid of any truth whatsoever as far as an investigation. Well, why is that of little practical significance? The Pentagon's missing $2.3 trillion. Well, prior to 9/11, what happened with American Airlines and United Airlines, the only two airlines used in the hijackings? Oh, $2.3 trillion worth of put options were placed on American and United Airlines that on the morning of September 11, 2001, that American and United Airlines stocks would plummet. The Pentagon's missing $2.3 trillion. There's $2.3 trillion worth of put options placed on United and American, and of course their stocks plummeted on that Tuesday morning. But we don't need to follow the money. We don't need to know who actually placed $2.3 trillion worth of put options on those airliners, do we? Because that's of little practical significance. Right. Don't follow the money in the biggest crime scene, the biggest crime period,
right,
promulgated onto this country, bigger than anything, bigger than any other crime you could think of that has happened in this country. Let's not follow the money on that one.
No.
See, that old adage, that's out the window just for this event. Then we'll go back to following the money for other events.
Right. Well, the physics went out the window for that event, as we discussed earlier. But, of course, the gold went out the window, too. That was in the towers. Just like in that movie that came out before, right? Die Hard with a Vengeance, right? With Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, right? When they bombed the World Trade Center area, right? And then had 42 dump trucks take all the gold out, right? What happened to all that gold, right? That disappeared as well. Never mind all the Enron records and all the other stuff, the stock options and all that. And the $25 trillion lost, of course, on Wall Street.
Yeah, don't. No. I'm glad you brought it up, because Building 7 housed a hell of a lot of information that is destroyed forever.
Exactly. And so you have that. You have the $25 trillion lost on Wall Street. And what's interesting is that I didn't make this connection until Richard Gage earlier, right? Architects and engineers said that we know that all of the evidence from the crime scene, right? Most of it was, spirited away before there was an investigation into the crime scene. But he mentions that most of it went over to China
to be recycled.
At the same time, China has become a part of the World Trade Organization, right, the WTO, that week, right? So the week that China becomes part of the WTO and nobody was paying attention to it because of 9/11, they're spiriting away all the evidence to China at the same time.
Who cleaned up the World Trade Center and put all that steel on the barges? A company called Controlled Demolition.
Controlled Demolition Incorporated. Yeah, that was interesting.
That also cleaned up Oklahoma City.
Oh, how about that? Yeah. Speaking of which, and let's not forget, we have a very specific. Now you mentioned Warren Commission Part 2, right?
Yep.
Which is interestingly enough, the Warren Commission, right, investigating Kennedy's death, never said that truth was their mission. They said their mission was to reassure the American people. Reassure them of what? That the official story is correct. That was their mission. That was their stated mission. Well, guess what? What's the official stated mission of the 9/11 Commission? Was not to find the truth. Was to, guess what? Reassure the American people. What? That the official story was correct. So yes, it is Warren Commission Part 2. And again, interestingly, some of the very same people involved.
Porter Goss,
right? In particular, right? Operation 40. Right, down in Mexico with Oswald's and the other CIA operatives with Carlos Rodriguez, who killed Che Guevara and all that stuff going on. Right, and then now he's director of the CIA for Bush and the investigation of 9/11. So absolutely incredible. But on the other side, I just want to briefly mention Joe Biden's role in 9/11. Let's not forget that, Mr. Counsel on Foreign Relations, and what does that Joe Biden have to do with 9/11?
Hey, Sentinel, great job with the clips. We're gonna, I tell you what, with the other clip, Sentinel, we'll make sure we give that to AA for the 19th with Ty Bollinger and Charlene.
There you go.
I'll tell you off air why we can't play it next week. Somewhere deep inside our Black Sheep studio, it is a Saturday night. EarthRadioNetwork.com is this show's website. EarthRadioNetwork.com. AA, the most controversial planet in the solar system.
Yes, this is Earth.
Hello, this is Ty Bollinger, author of the best-selling book, Cancer, Step Outside the Box. I want you to know some very important information. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan requested that Carnivora be sent directly to the White House at a time when only the president could obtain this world-class healer. Now, 27 years later, Carnivora capsules are used around the world to keep people healthy. Now you can protect yourself and your loved ones in this age of superbugs with 17 naturally occurring compounds that instinctively respond to abnormal cells only without harming a single normal cell. If you want to stay healthy, now's your chance to literally wake up your critical immune cells to attack harmful invaders that don't belong in your body. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY or order from carnivora.com. That's CARNIVORA.com. That's 1-866-836-8735, 1-866-VENUS-FLY, or visit carnivora.com. Protect your immune system. It's the only one you've got.
AMCO Transmissions, the trusted experts in transmission repair for over 50 years, are also the right choice for all car repairs.
Yes, AMCO Transmissions, the name you know for fixing the most complicated part of your car, can take care of your brakes, tune-ups, belts and hoses, air conditioning, regular factory maintenance. They can fix anything.
Plus, at AMCO, if you think your car may need repairs, we'll perform a free multi-point inspection and let you make the decision. If another shop says you need a repair, stop. Then come to AMCO Transmissions and Total Car Care for a free second opinion.
Why pay someone when AMCO will check it for free?
Don't trust your car to just anyone. Get it done right at any of our local family-operated Jacksonville area locations, including Orange Park, St. Augustine, and St. Mary's, Georgia.
Additional diagnostic charges may apply. See Center for details.
Find the AMCO Center nearest you at AMCOJacksonville.com.
AA MCO.
If you need car or truck repairs but money's tight, get help at AMCO. No matter what your credit history, AMCO has finance plans to help almost everyone.
Are you tired of getting hit in the head or told to roll over because of your loud, annoying snoring? And you don't want to revert to a CPAP machine strapped to your face? Well, why not try a custom-made snore guard by SomnoMed? Your risk for stroke and heart attack will be reduced by 30%. Hi, this is Dr. James McCall, and I wear a SomnoMed snore guard, and I'm sleeping better than ever, and my wife couldn't be happier. Call me at 620-9225 and see if you're a candidate for a custom-made snore guard, which is covered by most health insurance plans. Give me a call at 620-9225.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The most controversial planet in the solar system. You are listening to Earth.
All right, last segment of tonight's program. I know Double A wants to get somewhere, also Sentinel, so we'll go Sentinel first and then Double A. Cool.
All right, yeah, you said something very interesting in that last segment. I just want to comment on it because I'm not sure if I ever heard you say it before, but you referred to the...
Is you me?
No, on the show. I might be wrong, but you referred to World Trade Center as a crime scene.
Yes.
Yes.
And, that's very interesting because I remember when after the whole thing went down and everybody was reacting to it, anybody that called World Trade Center or the Pentagon or, Shanksville, a crime scene, they were viewed as un-American. This was an act of war. You can't say that. It is not a crime scene. We've got to do something about it militarily. We can't have it a crime scene. And that's what led to our invasion of Afghanistan and eventually Iraq because, they were the ones that perpetrated it, obviously, because otherwise we wouldn't go there, right? So, that was something that just kind of sparked my memory was, when somebody mentioned that those places were a crime scene, they were instantly viewed as un-American.
I'm glad you remember that. Yes, I've always called it a crime scene because what did they do? They tampered with in it. Let's just take Lower Manhattan, for example. It's an entire crime scene, and they immediately, instead with no investigation, started doing what? Getting rid of the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, nothing's saying if it wasn't an act of war as well, that you couldn't have responded, like how we responded, not that it was correct. But nothing stops a military response if you preserve a crime scene to actually investigate what went down. But I see what you're saying. They took that narrative and interesting.
And a lot of countries, like, for example, Pakistan said, we know where bin Laden is. Let's put him in a neutral country, and we'll have a trial, and you present evidence and do everything that you should do when there's a crime committed.
Yes.
And we will capture him for you. But oh no, we had to go to war.
Well, even in an act of war, what is a crime? What is the definition of a crime? Somebody broke the law.
Well, in Sentinel, yeah.
And if you kill mass people, that's breaking the law.
What Sentinel is bringing up here is something that we'll broach next Saturday night, I'm sure,
definitely.
because that's something called.
Yeah, nobody's interested in saying it was a law, any laws that were broken, though.
Right.
Well, it was a crime scene.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is next Saturday night, we'll get to it. We'll get to the Project for the New American Century because.
Or the actual definition of terrorism in the Patriot Act that says it's a crime.
I know.
Right?
I'm just saying, in the Project for the New American Century, it's right there. It's right there. What Sentinel was talking about. The premise for going to Afghanistan, invading Afghanistan, Eurasia, and the Middle East, Iraq. Well, it's right there in PNAC, right?
Yes.
Authored by Dick Cheney.
Yes, the Project for the New American Century, rebuilding America's defensive think tank from the year 2000.
Talking about needing a permanent foothold in Eurasia and the Middle East, we will not be able to do this short of a catalyzing event. Something like a new Pearl Harbor is what we need.
Page 51 of the report, so definitely you can check that out for free. As usual, another fantastic show. We'll get to Joe Biden and his 9/11 connections next week. Freedom is always your first best destiny.
Have a good night, everybody.
Great show, Sentinel.
Great show. Love having Richard Gage on.
Always love having him on. Next Saturday night, 9/11 series continues with Jack Blood and John Conner, folks. For our elusive engineer, webmaster Tony. the great Bob Austin and Scott Hare. Until next time, let justice be done till the heavens fall. I'm Truth. This is Earth.
Everything is never as it seems.
And we close with good night, good luck, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Hello, this is your producer back at Earth Control. Thanks for listening to tonight's broadcast. In case you missed any of it, or you would just like to hear it again, stay tuned. The replay will begin on this website in about 10 minutes. Thanks again for listening, and make sure to tune in next Saturday night at 10 p.m. for another edition of Earth.